example that what often the best way to get people to do something is to tell them they can't do it. The book President Trump tried to stop from going on store shelves is flying off those shelves. That is in the bookstores where Fire and Fury has arrived.
Many of those stores, though, especially here in South Florida, have lots of eager customers, but no copies of that explosive book yet.
This book is generating so much buzz, you would think it was about wizards and muggles, but it's not. CBS 4's Mola Lenghi live at the White House with more. Hi, Mola.
Well, good evening, guys. You know, when President Trump was a private citizen, he was known to threaten and to file lawsuits against people who were critical of him, who he believed were defaming him. Well, now it seems Mr. Trump is carrying that practice over into his presidency. The author of an explosive new book about the Trump White House is standing by his work.
I have recordings, I have notes. I am certainly and absolutely in every way comfortable with everything I've reported in this book.
But President Trump is attacking the book, saying he did not authorize access to the White House, that he never spoke to the book's author, and that it is full of lies and misrepresentations. Michael Wolff tells NBC's Today Show the president is wrong.
I absolutely spoke to the president. Whether he realized it was an interview or not, I don't know, but it certainly was not off the record.
President Trump tried to stop the release of the book and had his lawyers send cease and desist letters to Wolff and the book's publisher, threatening legal action.
Regardless of whether or not there's a lawsuit, they should be concerned about peddling fake stories. They should be concerned about putting out information that's not true.
In response, the publisher moved the book's release date from next week to today, citing unprecedented demand.
Not only is he helping me sell books, but he's helping me prove the point of the book. I mean, this is extraordinary that a president of the United States would try to stop the publication of a book.
Fire and Fury is already at #1 on Amazon's bestsellers list. Now, we should note that some of Wolff's, the author of this book, some of his past writings have been scrutinized. They have been challenged for their, for their accuracy, as well as, some of their attention to detail. But there are reports, and Wolff has admitted this himself, that he has recordings, audio recordings of some of the interviews for this book, though he has not yet said whether he will release those audio recordings. Guys?
And Mola, the president and Wolff, the author, are both adamant that their versions are the truth, so both men can't be right. Who is winning the believability battle in D.C.?
Well, it's tough to say. It really depends on who you ask. But I think ultimately beyond that, what this really comes down to is that this is a political problem for the president. You can argue who's more credible, but this is, for this White House and this president, it is damaging. When you've got someone like Steve Bannon, who's sort of central to the book, he sort of verifies and he gives credit to a lot of stories and a lot of reports that this White House has long denied. This White House has long called fake news. The president calling things a hoax. I'll give you two quick examples. The Russia investigation. Steve Bannon in this book says that Don Trump Jr.'s taking of that meeting at Trump Tower 2 summers ago, taking the meeting with the Russian lawyer was treasonous. Now, just because Steve Bannon says it's treasonous doesn't make it treasonous, but it gives credibility to the investigation that's looking into acts just like that. That's looking into collusion. It's looking into treason. It's looking into all this sort of stuff. So it gives credibility to that. Also, Steve Bannon at one point in the book says that the president has lost it, sort of saying that the president has lost his mind. This runs parallel to some claims that some of the president's advisors, some of his cabinet members have referred to him as a moron, as stupid, as an idiot. Cast aside the sort of salacious details, the palace intrigue, the fact that those are catchy kind of headlines. Put those aside. And this, Steve Bannon's claim sort of fits into a larger narrative that this president might be unfit for office. It doesn't mean just because a couple of people called him stupid or may not have called him stupid, or Steve Bannon says that he's lost his mind, that he is in fact unfit for office, but it gives oxygen to that argument. So, the bigger story here is that the book, the interviews, the claims within it, it gives credibility to a lot of things that this White House and this president have long denied.
Mola Lenghi at the White House. Mola, thank you very much. And that very question was posed to the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who was asked about whether or not President Trump is fit for office after that bombshell book called into question the president's mental health. Take a listen.
I've never questioned his mental fitness. I have no reason to question his mental fitness. My relationship with him, and it is a developing one, and I remind people, and I think it's well known, that he and I did not know one another before he asked me to serve as Secretary of State. So we don't have a lot of history and past, so part of this is us coming to learn and understand one another.
And Tillerson saying that his relationship with the president is evolving and one that he has been learning to navigate during his first year on the job.
In that same